We got stick figures. Who needs videos when you have stick figures?
Stick figures when you have a Jesus fish, a steering wheel, and a thing, and a stick man. Wait, what is this?
I purposely made it well, yeah, you could say Jesus fish, but I was going to go cross, and then I was like, well, we've had so many cross EST tables that we need a cross break, so that's why I went with fish. Fish is, by the way, is a word.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Multiple types of fish.
Miss Mark was used to be Miss Mark was
No, you can't say like free goldfish.
Then we talk about this one.
Say these words.
Yeah, so up here, we'll let Meredith do her pencil sharpening. It's tricky. It's okay. Your book doesn't look like this, but mostly everyone else's book looks like that, so we'll put the blue book up here. 1922 is when this gets published, and it gets published in German, it gets translated into English. I forget the exact year, it probably says in the beginning of your book. I'll say like 1951 or 1952. So that's when, not right away, but it's really like in the 60s, early 60s, that the book kind of gets embraced, especially in the US. Hippie culture, counterculture, movement, all that kind of stuff. Not putting the book after Cuckoo's Nest for this one reason, but Kesey is one of the people who really likes the book and proclaims it as being good. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's a big change from the Disturbed ward and hacking parties and EST table fog and all that kind of stuff to this one. You're not going to be getting nearly the amount of action, I guess, necessarily taking place. I'd say most people probably do tend to enjoy reading it. In the past, I've used Siddhartha as an independent reading book. I have not used it as a full class book. So you guys are guinea pigs this year. We're going to do it with full classes. You're the fourth class of the day, so I'm hoping by the time 7th period rolls around, most of the kinks are worked out. We'll see. If you have anyone in first period, anyone in first period, we'll probably talk about how I walk the lessons. So, man, be kind. But I think overall, it should be a pretty good book, easy again to read. There are going to certainly be some cultural references. There's Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity are all kind of incorporated into the book, and that's where the symbols come in. So we'll take a look at it. But I don't think that means that you have to be an aficionado expert in any of those to fully understand, grasp the meaning of the book. So to call it a Buddhist book, or to call it a Hindu book, or a Christian book, or any of those things, I don't think is necessarily going to work. Your cover is pretty similar to the other one. You got a head. This one's got like full body. People look at it and go, ooh, that's the Buddha. And so early reviews of the book, like, 1920s, 1930s, were like, ooh, it's a wonderful historical biography of the Buddha. It's not a biography of the Buddha by any means. The Buddha is in the book, and so that kind of could cause some of the confusion. And the title character, the protagonist, the main character's name is, ooh, you guys are good. And historically, the Buddha's original name is also Siddhartha, so that's where I think some of that confusion starts to take place. But it is a novel, but you're set in India, 5th century BCE at the time of the Buddha, because he didn't show up. But it's not just a biography of him. But Megan, your question, going back to the symbols that we have up here, we do have our Christian fish. That's just a stick figure. He doesn't represent anybody.
Society.
Okay. We got the wheel. Anyone know the wheel?
It was a compass. Well.
It's okay.
Founded in Mesopotamia.
If you start off any conversation with originated in Mesopotamia, people believe you right away. It's
It was. I learned about it in world history.
In the fertile, it's not yet.
from religion, cultural standpoint, Christian symbol, Hindu symbol, Buddhist symbol. Okay, so with the wheel, people think of like reincarnation, things like that. There are 8 spokes to the wheel, which is going to be significant, which we'll get into in a little bit. Someone asked earlier, why is the number 30 important in the Hindu religion? It's not the number 30. So, what is it? It's there you go.
You were like, oh, it's
the meditation.
He was just getting gradually quieter.
I got a slide that'll get us into there earlier, so I wasn't completely dependent on Elena for that one. So I figured you'll be able to understand when we get there. So the idea with these, Hess grows up in a very devout, strict Lutheran household. He is born in Germany, and we'll get into his biography a little bit later, but he does grow up in India because both parents are missionaries, and so he has a lot of knowledge, influence from Indian culture in general. So certainly all three of these culture, viewpoints, religions, however you want to look at it, are going to play a part. But to go, it's a Buddhist book, it's a Christian book, it's a Hindu book, it's saying that Christianity is better than the other two, Hinduism is the way to go. I don't think any of those things are going to be accurate if you try to view it that way. Certainly I'd say there's a little bit of a combination of all three, and in some ways he could be arguing, and this is where the discussions will come in, then maybe it's really none of the three that are the best route to take, but kind of finding your own path with it, which is what we'll take a look at. Vince, can you read this from back there? Good. You can start with your $49 pen. Just kind of letting you know here before you start writing stuff down. In this first slide that we go to, I don't think you really need to take a look at so far as writing things down word for word. Down here at the bottom, we're going to take a look at the Vedas, Brahmanism, the Upanishads, and Buddhism in a little bit more specific terms. So those would be some points that you would want to write down as we get to it. But just going to look at a general overview here in a little bit. There is going to be some terms that pop up throughout the course of the book that you might not necessarily be familiar with. We'll go over those things today. It's not like there's going to be a thesaurus of literary terms that you need to know in order for all of this stuff to work. I think you'll be perfectly okay with that. And there's plenty of stick figures, so not in the book, but in the slides. Greta, do you know the origins of Hinduism? Well, you've come to the right place. Maybe. The meditating stick figure is my favorite, I think, out of all of them. I like the eyes. We're doing like quick snapshot of Hinduism and Buddhism here. You don't have to certainly consider me to be an expert on any of them, but just trying to give you some ideas with what to take a look at. Text-wise, Hindu thought, beliefs, pillars are all going to be based around the Vedas. The Vedas would be like prayers, hymns, very ancient texts going back about 3,500 years ago. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world. If there's not going to be a certain starting point where we go in the year 499 BCE it began. No one really knows for sure, but the Vedas are going to go back to about 1500 or so. Where they came from is up for a little bit of debate, which we'll kind of talk about here in a little bit. But the religion itself is really not all that different if you look at it from a ritual standpoint as to what most other religions would be involved in. You take a look at it, practices included prayer, sacrifice, pilgrimages to sacred places, bathing in sacred rivers. Those are pretty much going to be pillars of most religions that are going to take place throughout the course of human history. I think sacrifices are one where people kind of start to go, ooh, that sounds a little bit different. But if you take a look at Jewish history, Christianity history, certainly you're going to see those aspects as well. And it's not so much human sacrifices that we're going to sacrifice Erica to the gods or anything like that. Unless you want us to. Okay. We're going to get into later that existence to exist means to suffer, and most people go, yes, that's true.
If someone dies,
Yeah.
is that actually true?
No, that's not true.
Oh,
No,
someone
you still
dies.
need to answer questions.
So like if someone just dies in the middle of the test, is it true?
Keep writing. So one year we had a fire drill. I might have said that already.
Did you get extra time?
Yeah, well, it became a whole incident report that you have to like fill out all those paperwork. People were kind of unhappy, obviously, because it interrupted. But I mean, it's kind of hard to pick up right where you left off. I think it wasn't an English test. I don't remember which one it was. It might have been like a math, but like still in the free response section, so they were kind of ticked off. Yeah, like word problems.
Terrible.
They're fun. One part that from up here that some people might take a little bit of interest in, the Hindu religion teaches that the beauty of nature must be ignored because it is an illusion. And that's certainly not going to go to say that don't look at the grass, don't look at the sky, But if you can think of it in the way, and of the writers that we've looked at this year, Thoreau is probably, Henry David Thoreau, Civil Disobedience, is probably the most influenced by Eastern culture. And that's just simply because in the mid-1800s, mid-19th century, that's when a lot of those ideas are starting to kind of come across a little bit. He would be one where, again, remember, he goes into nature for 2 years on his own, where you have to try to get away from outside influences and come at peace with yourself. And that's really where the whole kind of own concept is certainly going to come from. That's going to come from within. You're not going to get that by staring at a tree, a flower, sky, raindrops, any of those kind of things. So in that regard, Thoreau is probably the most influence that we've had at this point by that kind of stuff. If you hit Vince, it's not too much of a loss.
Anybody else on the list? I just want to hear Mr.
Maggie said Hannah, but I didn't say it. It's all about who you want to take out. All right, so we're taking a look here at the first part with the Vedas. Mentioned to you that you have basically ancient texts, hymns, prayers that would be taking place. You can do it. I don't.
This is really difficult with the class one.
We're all watching you.
Is it? I need it.
You got it. You got it. You got it. See, this thing still came over. There you go.
Sorry for interrupting.
Fine. So, ancient group of prayers, hymns with the Vedas. The theory behind it is certainly within dispute. 1500 BCE, certainly over 3,000 years ago. I don't remember the exact year, 1850-ish or so. So, about 160 years ago, the Indo-Aryan invasion, which that's not really probably the best word, theory kind of comes about. You read the term Aryan. Some people suggest that the Vedas were brought to India by Aryans around that time. Aryans does not mean anything from an ethnic standpoint. It's strictly location. You hear the term Aryan when it comes to like Hitler and Nazism and things like that, you know, great white race and those kinds of ideas. This has nothing to do with that. Aryans, a group of people who would have been located in Europe, Germany, Turkey, into parts of like, you know, Syria and whatnot in today's world. 1840s, 1850s, linguists were starting to maybe recognize what they thought were connections between Indian dialects and European dialects. And so the argument was, well, the Europeans must have come into India, and then that's where the languages kind of start to get their similarities and maybe diversify a little bit. That has never been officially proven at all. But one theory would be that the Aryans brought the Vedas with them to India. Certainly, if you are a native of India, you're probably going to be taken aback by this because an outsider is saying that outsiders brought in this important cultural aspect to your country. So there is certainly some disagreement as to how that took place. Which of the two is true? Probably never going to know for sure. Certainly migrations would have taken place, but to say that a group of people brought one whole religion to one area is probably going to be a little bit of an exaggeration. Hindu culture, most people are certainly going to be taking a look at India, and it's going to go into other parts as well. You know, Pakistan, Nepal, China, all certainly are within those areas, and certainly worldwide religion at this point. From a Christian timeline, not that people are going to have events all memorized, 1500 BCE would basically also be the same time you have Moses leading people out of Egypt. So, you know, the basis of those religions are both going back many, many, many millennia at that point. Caste system is going to certainly get brought up within the book, Siddhartha. And Siddhartha, our protagonist, is a Brahmin. Meaning that his father, family are part of those who are going to guard the traditions, the rites, and all that kind of stuff within Hinduism. That doesn't mean he's the
wealthy automatically. Now, Siddhartha's upbringing is pretty wealthy pretty well-to-do for the most part, but just because they're at the top doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be the richest. But underneath, where you have nobles, merchants, servants, that certainly is going to be a little bit of a financial scale that's going to be taking place. Merchants are certainly going to be showing up throughout the course of the book, some servants as well. And then you also have the untouchables, the lowest class, who are basically going to be doing the dirty jobs. So if Vince were an untouchable, we're not going to touch him or talk to him. Greta, stay away. If Vince is an untouchable, he's pretty much going to be an untouchable. There's not going to be situations of him moving up. There's usually not going to be upward movement, nor would there be downward movement. The caste that you were born into is basically where you're going to be for your entire life. It's like me. You're in this English class your whole entire life. Can't leave. Someday I'll graduate. The Upanishads, this is going to be then texts that are looking at what's happening with the Vedas. It's going to be a little bit more theoretical in philosophical, I guess would be the word to use in general. And this is in nature, and this is where we'll pick up tomorrow. Because Ellie wants to eat. That was the bell.
There's the other bell back there.
The bell.
I'm so happy that I remember.
And this is why tomorrow you can come up, do your little presentation. Remember, literary term quiz tomorrow, first thing we'll do, and then we're going to pick up with this stuff.